Miami. The city of endless sunshine, turquoise seas, and pastel-colored dreams. To the outside world, it's paradise. South Beach nightlife, Art Deco facades glowing pink and blue. The promise of wealth and escape. Palm trees sway against the ocean breeze, yachts glitter in the bay, and the whole city seems built to convince you that life here can only be beautiful. But every paradise casts a shadow. For every pastel facade on Ocean Drive, there's a backstreet where deals are whispered in the dark. For every nightclub spilling laughter into the night, there's a Moore drawer filled with the cost of excess. Miami's history is written in contradictions. A playground for the rich, a haven for dreamers, and a battleground for criminals who believed the city itself was theirs to rule. Here, the boundaries are blurred. Religion merges with magic. Mansions transform into mausoleums. Hotels host both millionaires and murderers. What seems like a postcard perfect moment can turn into a crime scene before the tide changes. Tonight, we slip beneath the surface of Miami's glossy image. We'll walk through haunted halls and blood-stained sidewalks where Cuban ghosts, ruthless gangsters, and misunderstood spirits linger in the humid night air. This is Miami as it truly is, seductive, dangerous, and haunted by the weight of its past. Welcome to a city where fantasy and nightmare intertwine. Welcome to Miami Noir. The Mutiny Hotel. In Coconut Grove, the building that became the Mutiny began life in 1968 as Sailboat Bay, a 105-suite tower by developer Burton Goldberg. A private club called the Mutiny opened on site in 1971. By 1976, the apartments had been converted to hotel suites and the property took on the Mutiny name. Themed rooms, bordello, gypsy caravan, even hot fudge helped cement its notoriety. By the late 70s and early 80s, the club and hotel grew into a decadent crossroads. Traffickers, celebrities, informants, and undercover cops circling the same velvet-roped rooms. Writer Robin Farzad, whose book Hotel Scarface chronicles the scene, describes fantasy suites, rivers of champagne, and a membership culture where all roads led back to the Mutiny. Filmmakers Oliver Stone and Brian De Palma scouted here, drawing inspiration for Scarface's Babylon Club. Miami Vice talent lingered to absorb the atmosphere. Cops listened from tinted vans across Bayshore Drive. Kingpins parked cash and coke in sweet safes, and fortunes shifted overnight. It truly was a real-life Casablanca, only with more wiretaps. The lushness and danger converge so tightly that the hotel's legend, not the rumors, is the wildest part. The Sun Gym Gang. In the mid-1990s, Sun Gym, a hardcore bodybuilders hangout in North Miami, became the orbit of a torture-for-profit crew led by Daniel "Danny" Lugo and Adrian Doorball. Lugo had already done time for fraud and was managing at Sun Gym when the crimes began. Their first big target, businessman Mark Schiller, was abducted in November 1994 and brutalized until he signed away assets. When he survived, police initially doubted his account and he fled Miami while working with private investigator Ed Du Bois to pursue the gang. In May 1995, the crew lured Frank Griga and Christina Furton with talk of a telecommunications deal. A struggle at Doorball's townhouse turned fatal. Furton was injected with a veterinary tranquilizer, and both victims were killed. To hide the crimes, the gang dismembered the bodies and put torsos into welded metal drums filled with caustic sludge before dumping them in a Miami canal. Police eventually recovered the barrels. Lugo and Doorbal were sentenced to death. The case sprawled across Miami-Dade, meetings at Shula's Steakhouse in Miami Lakes, a townhouse hideout nearby, a Hialeah warehouse, even associates with law enforcement ties. Miami New Times' three-part investigation later inspired Pain and Gain. But the real story was darker. Ordinary men who convinced themselves they deserved more, no matter who had to pay. The murder of Gianni Versace. Morning, July 15th, 1997. Fashion icon Gianni Versace returned from his daily walk to the News Cafe and climbed the steps of Casa Casuarina, his restored Mediterranean revival mansion at 1116 Ocean Drive. Andrew Cunanan, already wanted for 4 murders, stepped forward and fired 2 shots at close range. Versace, aged 50, was rushed to Jackson Memorial, where he died. A massive manhunt ended 8 days later, on July 23rd, when Cunanan killed himself on a Miami Beach houseboat, leaving behind speculation, but no clear motive. Today, the mansion operates as the Villa Casa Casuarina, with Gianni's restaurant serving guests steps from where the world's flashbulbs once fixed. The house remains a site of pilgrimage, luxury layered over tragedy. Villa Paula. In 1926, Cuba built a consular residence at 5811 North Miami Avenue for Consul Domingo Milor and his wife Paula. Designed by Havana architect Cayetano Freire, the neoclassical home, columns, arches, imported materials from Cuba, aimed to project cosmopolitanism in a still young Miami. The consulate closed in 1930. Paula died in 1932. A persistent tale claims she was buried in the garden, but records show she rests at Woodlawn Cemetery. The house's haunted reputation grew after a 1970s restoration. Owner Cliff Ensor spoke of music from empty rooms, phantom footsteps, and a rose scent drifting through the air, Paula's favorite flower. Whether ghost stories or folklore, Villa Paula is now a protected historic site, an occasional gallery, a little Havana in Miami where diplomacy blurred into myth. Santería sacrifices. Miami's Afro-Cuban religious landscape includes Santería, also called Lucumi, which honors Orishas through ceremony, divination, and offerings. In Hialeah, in the late 1980s, the city passed ordinances aimed at banning ritual animal sacrifice. In 1993, the U.S. Supreme Court struck those laws down, ruling they violated the Free Exercise Clause. The decision affirmed that religious animal sacrifice, conducted under health and cruelty laws, is protected. From time to time, Miami authorities still encounter dumped ritual remains, from tropical park discoveries in 2019 to a video incident on Virginia Key in 2022, which trigger sanitation and cruelty investigations when disposal is unlawful. For practitioners, the rites are devotion. For the city, they are a challenge to balance religious freedom with public health. The Biltmore Hotel. Every paradise needs a palace, and in Miami, that palace came with a ghost. The Biltmore, built in 1926 in Coral Gables, is a Mediterranean revival resort, crowned by a tower modeled after Seville's Giralda and fronted by what was then the largest hotel pool in the world. In its heyday, it was the playground of the famous. Olympic champion Johnny Weissmuller taught swimming lessons here, and the guest book boasted presidents like Franklin D. Roosevelt, along with Hollywood icons such as Judy Garland, Ginger Rogers, and Bing Crosby, leaving the place scented with cigars, salt air, and money. But Miami never lets glamour stand alone. They say that in a high-tower suite, often said to be the 13th floor, the party of 1929 turned red. Thomas "Fatty" Walsh, a New York mobster with too many debts and not enough friends, slumped to the carpet after gunfire and shouting. The gamblers scattered. The legend stayed. Since then, staff whisper about an elevator that pauses with no one waiting, about laughter bleeding through closed doors, about a presence that lingers in the corridor just long enough to make you doubt your eyes. Ask around and you'll get a half smile and a shrug. Some say Walsh still rides the lift, still checks the lock, still hates an empty glass. Others say it's the echo of the old crowd, cards snapping, ice clinking, a joke told too close to danger. At the Biltmore, the chandeliers still glow, and the pool still glitters. But if you linger after midnight, listen. A click of dice, a breath at your shoulder, the soft ding of an elevator that stops on a floor you didn't ask for. In Miami, the past doesn't leave, it loiters. And here, the ghosts never tip for housekeeping. Neon Noir, Miami. The city's neon noir legend wasn't born on TV. On July 11, 1979, the Dadeland Mall shootout, later dubbed the Dadeland Massacre, announced a cocaine war already brewing. By 1980, Miami recorded 573 homicides. 1981 climbed to 621, forcing the county to rent a refrigerated truck to store bodies. National media labeled it Paradise Lost, and for a time, that's what it felt like. Miami remade itself. Towers rose, neighborhoods revived, but the undercurrents never drained away. The mutinies whispered favors, Sun Jim's brutal greed, the Versace steps, Villa Paula's rose-scented lore, and the rhythms of Santería, all stitched together a city where beauty and darkness sit side by side, neither willing to vanish. A city of light, shadow, and endless contradictions. Walk its streets and you move through two worlds at once. One of glamour and glitter, the other of crime and legend. A place where the dead dance beside the living, and where history refuses to stay buried. Paradise and purgatory sharing the same humid air. Together they form a chorus that hums beneath the neon glow. To live in Miami is to accept the blur, beauty and decay, ritual and rumor, luxury and loss. It is a city that remakes itself endlessly, yet never escapes its own reflection. Like the ocean that laps at its shores, Miami is dazzling on the surface, but the deeper you swim, the darker it gets. So the next time you find yourself wandering these pastel streets, look past the glitter. Feel the heat that never breaks. Listen closely. You may hear laughter, or you may hear whispers. And if you catch a shadow moving where no shadow should be, don't be surprised. Because in Miami, the night has a memory, and here, the ghosts never sleep.